Well, good afternoon, everyone. In case you think this looks a little different, it is. We are in Marion, Ohio today. 100 years ago, at this moment, presidential campaign was going on between Marion native Warren G. Harding, who owned the Marion Star, and James Cox from Dayton, who owned the Dayton Daily News. And it was an all Ohio show. So I'm going to have Fran talk a little bit about Mrs. Harding.
Well, it's kind of fun to be here today in their home. You know, Warren Harding and Florence Harding built this house the year that they were married in 1891. You know, Florence was pretty much a modern woman. She worked with her husband at the Marion Star. He was the owner, publisher, and she worked with him. And she was also helped her husband on campaigns. And she liked to campaign and share recipes. The favorite recipe I think that many people associate with Mrs. Harding was one of Warren Harding's favorite recipes, and that was his recipe for waffles. He had this saying that was his favorite recipe, but he had this saying: you eat the first 14 waffles without syrup, but with lots of butter. Then you put syrup on the next 9, and the last half dozen you eat swimming with butter. Eaten that way, waffles never hurt anybody. So I think that's kind of a fun thing. And when the school kids go through this old home, they love reading that quote from Warren Harding. The waffle iron still sits on the gas stove, and it's just kind of a cool thing. I have to say, I've made this recipe for Mike a couple of times just to try it out. And the secret to the lightness of it is that she beat the egg whites separately and then folded them in. So, and many times she served it as a main dish, you know, not just with syrup, but with a dried beef gravy over waffles, which was really one of his favorites. Mrs. Harding was also very active in the suffrage movement. And she was, you know, I have my suffrage pin on today, and she was the very first lady to vote for her husband for president.
Talking about the waffles makes me hungry. So, Ohio has 13 presidential sites, including the Harding Center. So you can visit ohiohistory.org and look for Presidential Trail, and you'll be able to see all of those locations. Something that Fran and I have done with our kids, and it's a lot of fun. Maybe to kind of set the stage, 1920, again, 2 Ohioans running. World War I was over. The country has just gotten through what was then called the Spanish flu. The League of Nations was still a hot issue and would turn out again to be a hot issue during that presidential campaign. Some of the people who had dominated the political scene were gone or leaving. Former President Theodore Roosevelt died in 1919. Actually at a young age. Woodrow Wilson was still president, but he had suffered a stroke, and he was pretty much in seclusion at the White House. As Fran said, the election of 1920 was right after women were granted the right to vote, and as Fran said, it was the first time a spouse had been able to vote for the other spouse for president. We're going to hear in a moment a little bit about the campaign. Fran and I decided to do it out here on the porch because this is where Harding campaigned. Some days he was gone out campaigning, but many days he was right here, and people chartered trains and other things to bring people in. And there's some pictures that we'll show you in a minute with this whole area out here really filled up with what looks like at least thousands and thousands of people. Let me give you an idea 100 years ago, October 8th, 1920. On this date, Harding was not actually here. He was away from his front porch campaign giving speeches in St. Joseph, Missouri. And then he would go on tonight to Kansas City. Then he was headed from there to the Southwest by rail. James Cox, the Democrat candidate, was in Bloomington, Indiana today for his third barnstorming trip into that state. And for baseball fans, in those days when the World Series was played in the first week in October, the Cleveland Indians were battling the Brooklyn Dodgers in the World Series. This was Game 5, and it was starting right now at 2 o'clock. Let me now turn to Sherry Hall, who is the site manager for the Harding Home and Presidential Center. Sherry is the author of Warren G. Harding and the Marion Daily Star, How Newspapering Shaped a President. Sherry, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Governor. I'm actually in the house right behind you. I'm in one of the upstairs rooms there, and I'm in a room that Florence Harding used during the campaign as kind of a home office. And she was very instrumental in that very busy campaign, giving lots of interviews, of course, talking to particularly women voters who are going to be casting a ballot for the very first time that year. To give you a little sense about the campaign and what it was like, it's totally opposite of what we do today. When the candidate goes out and gives speeches everywhere, most of the time Harding is going to stay here and he'll entertain thousands of people at one time who are going to come mostly by train, but some also venture over Ohio's rather suspect roads and drive here to Marion. They're going to gather before that front porch that the governor's standing on, and 5,000 to 10,000 people at a time, twice a week. Over the course of the 3-month campaign, that's all it was, 3 months, more than 600,000 people came to Marion, Ohio to listen to him and give a speech from that very porch.
That had to be good for business too, I imagine. Restaurants probably like that.
Yes, Marion's economy did really well that summer and fall.
Well, that really is great. Now, some of the time we looked this up, and apparently today he was not campaigning here. So some of the time he must have left here and gone out and campaigned. Is that right?
He did. And a lot of folks don't know that. He did go off the front porch kind of intermittently during the campaign to visit other states. He would go by rail in 3 or 4 day trips and then come back to the porch. He would increase that a little bit through October. He ended up visiting 13 other states. Mostly he's in charge of the Midwest and the Southwest. And his running mate, Calvin Coolidge, is going to take care of speaking engagements in the Northeast. He's not going to even venture into the South because that's Democratic territory, and none of them are going to be swing states for the Republicans that year.
The solid South for the Democrats.
Absolutely.
For many years. Tell us a little bit about the house. When was it built? Who built it?
Well, the Hardings were the first and only owners of the house until it came into the hands of a private group called the Harding Memorial Association in 1925 after Mrs. Harding died. The Hardings had the house built in 1891. Then during the year he and Florence were engaged to be married, and they were married actually right inside the front door there by the stairs. They lived there for the next 30 years. So it's very much not a presidential house. It's a newspaper owner's house, a small businessman's house. It's not one of the fanciest houses in Marion. It's a pretty ordinary house, which gives us a great insight into how just ordinary folks lived at that time in history.
So you're going through restoration now, and you've just built a visitor center here. How was that funded?
Well, we've done a lot here the past 2 or 3 years. We have done a complete restoration of the Harding home, so it will look as much as possible as how it looked during the 1920 campaign. That includes the grounds as well At the same time, we have constructed a new building, the Warren G. Harding Presidential Library and Museum, which is adjacent to the Harding home. A wonderful partnership went into the building of this, the new building and the restoration. It's about half and half state capital funds, and the rest was private donations. So we really depended upon both of those avenues of revenues in completing this project.
So Fran and I had the chance just a moment ago, literally to look at the visitor center. We looked into a couple rooms, really, really well done. When will people be able to see this?
We are working toward opening. What we've done here is basically we're opening a brand new historic site. It's much different than what we've been operating for the past 50 years or so, which is just a house museum. So in addition to trying to open up a new site, we've had COVID to deal with, as everyone else has. So we are working our way toward opening. Can't tell you an opening day yet, but as soon as we know that, we'll let people know.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for what you've done. You've been here a few years, I know. You told me how many years?
I've been here 20. Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, you're a veteran. You're a veteran.
I'm a veteran. Maybe I should have just said that. Yes.
But but going back to when I was in the United States Congress and Marion was in my congressional district, I've always been really impressed by the dedication and the pride that people in Marion have in this home, in this history, and in Warren G. Harding. So it's a really, when you talk about a public-private partnership, it's really a great thing to see. And thank you for all that you have done.
You're very welcome.
We look forward to the time when this can open up and everybody can come see it.
We look forward to that too. Thank you, Governor.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let me now turn to Dayton. I bring in Mary Kay Mabe, who is a professor at Sinclair Community College. She teaches Ohio history and teaches about James Cox. Mary Kay, thank you very much for being on.
Thank you for inviting me, Governor.
Well, tell us a little bit. The person who loses in a presidential race, doesn't have the prominence later on. But tell us a little bit about James Cox, founder of what is now Cox Enterprises, all the Cox newspapers for many, many years. And tell us a little bit about that, and then maybe about the campaign from the point of view of James Cox. And before we do that, he had an interesting running mate. I don't know if you brought the picture. You bring the picture with you?
Oh, yeah.
You have it there? We'll
If
see.
I can show it to you here.
Yeah.
There's,
So
yeah.
running mate, of course, is a young Franklin Roosevelt. And this picture, I believe, was taken in Dayton.
Right.
And this was during the time when he was officially notified. Of course, he knew he'd got the nomination, but
Right.
so tell us a little bit about that day, and about Cox.
Okay. He was born in a really small community right outside of Middletown called Jacksonburg. And it's a real small town. I believe last time I looked at its population was 2,000, and it was a population of 27 people, but the homestead's still there. And he completed his high school education, and he actually taught for a while. And on weekends, then he would work for his brother-in-law at a Middletown newspaper, and he grew to enjoy being a journalist more so than being a teacher. And so he had an opportunity one time to cover a story. And at that time, I believe it was a train wreck. And so in order to hold on to the telegraph lines, he had the telegraph operator start transmitting the Bible until he could come back and and recapture the lines and actually file his story.
That's one way to beat the competition, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
hang
yeah.
on to the line. So he ends up with the Dayton paper.
Right. But before he ended up with the Dayton paper, he was actually a special assistant to a congressman to Washington, D.C., gentleman by the name of Paul Sorg. And he made some very interesting acquaintances when he was in Washington, D.C., but he told Paul Sorg that he always wanted to have his own newspaper. So Paul Sorg helped him finance the purchase of the Dayton Evening News. And he purchased the newspaper. And once he purchased it, he found out the subscribership wasn't quite what was reported, but he made a success of it. And as time went on, then he started to use his newspaper to kind of combat some local social issues. And he caught the attention of the local Democratic Party. And the local Democratic Party in Dayton then asked him to be a candidate for at that time, it was the 3rd Ohio Congressional District. It's the district that Mike Turner has today. And
it actually remained the 3rd district for a long time after that as well. So ends up 1920, he's governor of Ohio.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about that picture that we saw, what was going on that day. That was a big celebration in Dayton as the campaign was really rolling.
That's the day that he was notified officially of his nomination of being the Democratic candidate. He knew from back in July, but this was in August when Franklin Roosevelt came to town. And they started, if anybody's familiar with Dayton, they started down by the river on Monument Street and Main Street, and they walked the distance between that location down to the fairgrounds. And the event was supposed to start at 2 o'clock, but by the time they got there, it was 4 o'clock because they stopped and said hi to everyone. And he had a speech all prepared. It was about 8,000 words long. And by the time he was able to give his speech, the weather started to change and he had to cut it short because the storm clouds were moving in. But that was the day that he officially began his campaign, and that was August of that year.
And he would campaign mostly on pretty big, significant trips, right?
Yeah, he would. He and Franklin Roosevelt would pick a coast. One started on the East Coast, one started on the West Coast, and they just kind of crossed back and forth. Their goal was to hit every state they possibly could. And Wright State has a really interesting map in their special collections and archive that shows all the different locations that they visited along that campaign.
Well, that's great. I'll go back to that picture because, it to me is a very significant picture because Franklin Roosevelt, not much over a year, I believe, after that, got polio and, of course, never walked really on his own completely again. And so here you see this youthful, tall, good-looking guy, and then a lot was ahead of him in the future, of course, and four-term president, but also that next year got polio and had to fight his way back from that. So, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Really appreciate that, and
thank you,
both of you coming in. Thank you so very, very much. Let's go, Eric, if we can, to look at the results of that election, and we'll look at both Ohio and we'll look at the U.S. And pull those maps up. Presidential election, as you basically can see, pretty much the solid South went for the Democrat, James Cox, and then Harding looks like carried pretty much everything else. Let's take a look at Ohio. Again, the red is Harding, blue is Cox, and pretty much it looks like a landslide in Ohio as well. Before we come back to the present, it's a book, Journey Through My Years by James Cox, written in 1946, I believe. And I was looking through it yesterday and came across this part. This is Cox describing what happened after he got the nomination. After Cox got the nomination, Senator Harding gave a public statement saying, and I quote, Governor Cox's nomination is an added consideration shown to our great state of Ohio, for which I'm glad, and gives reasonable assurance that finally a newspaper man is to be made the nation's chief executive. Ohio has accorded to Governor Cox very unusual distinction, and he deserved his notable victory at San Francisco, where the convention was. His nomination will not in any way change our activities in Ohio. It is a great party contest before us, to be fought on great principles involved, and neither place of residence nor personality will have any marked influence on the result. So that was a comment from Senator Harding. And in the book, Cox goes on right after that to say, this was characteristic of Warren G. Harding. He was a warm-hearted man with most gracious impulses. He was not one to harbor grievances or deliberately do injury to any man. He had advanced from state senator to lieutenant governor and then to the United States Senate. To him, that was the ideal public assignment. Now, many unkind things have been said and written of Mr. Harding. Harsh criticism is the penalty laid upon most public men. The scandals of his administration inspired many an accusing word against his character, that he was amiable to the point of weakness, that he lacked vigilance, and that he permitted himself unfit associates cannot be denied. But he was an honest man. And while the conduct of many close to him was reprehensible, his own official record was never tarnished with dishonor. So I just found that interesting. 100 years ago. Back to today, we'll start off, Eric, with the slides for today's data. And as you can see, sadly, the number of cases continues to go up. We're above 1,500 for the day. The average is now pushing 1,100. So we've seen this spike go up, and not something that we certainly want to see. 13 deaths reported since yesterday. There were 109 new hospitalizations, 11 new ICU admissions reported in the last 24 hours. Let's look, Eric, at the counties by incidence. We'll start with the top 20, and then we will look at the top 88. But if you look at the top 20, again, you'll find mostly rural counties. You'll find counties at the top that have 2.5 times to almost 3 times the number of cases for the last 2 weeks above what the CDC says is high incidence. So very frankly, these numbers are very alarming. I want to take a moment to talk about the positivity. Positivity was going down for quite some time, and we were just delighted. Again, this is if you take the total number of cases for the day, the tests, and then you look at what percentage actually came back positive. To date, our lowest positivity was in mid to late September, when our single day rate dipped to 2.5% several different times. And our weekly average was 2.7. And that was really great news. It was 2.7 for the week of September 18th. Today, our daily positivity was 3.9%, our most current day, and a 7-day rolling average is 3.3. Reflects the ongoing increasing trend of virus spread that we're seeing throughout the state of Ohio. So these numbers are not good. Eric, let's go to the public health alert system and we'll look at our map. As you look at it, on your left is last week, to the right is this week. And you can see we're getting a lot, unfortunately, we're getting a lot more red in there. Eric, let's look at the next slide. So this is as of today. We're announcing 18 red counties, the highest number we've seen since the week of July 23rd. And now there are 58 orange counties this week, the highest ever. The virus is spreading in more areas of the state and impacting a wider swath of Ohio. Again, as we talk to public health departments, what they tell us when they try to drill down on the causes of this spread, lax social distancing, not enough people wearing masks, not enough people following quarantine and isolation guidance. Let's look, Eric, at our next slide, if we could. What we've done with this slide is you will see that we've only put on the slide the red, which are the red counties, and the other counties that you see there in orange, I guess, those are high incidence counties. So if you're watching this at home, these would be the counties that if you live in one of these counties, you would worry about because they have a either they have a high incidence or they are a red county, which means they meet many of the seven indicators. So these are the counties that we're particularly most concerned about. Again, talking with local health departments, a lot of the spread we're seeing is being driven by everyday activities that certainly seem benign, seem innocent, having neighbors over for a backyard barbecue, meeting up with friends after a sporting event, or going to a birthday party with family. These are all some of the leading causes of the spread we're seeing. There's also increased spread among families and households, in churches, and at after-school activities and sports. We're seeing these gatherings many times are turning into outbreaks. In half of our new red counties, there are outbreaks related to funerals or weddings. Let me just say that again. In half of our new red counties, there are outbreaks related to funerals or to weddings. In one example, we heard about recently, and this is just absolutely breaks your heart. I'm not saying where it was, but somewhere in Ohio, a wedding took place. A lot of people, and ended up with two of the grandfathers of the couple died as a result of COVID. It's horrible. As of this week, 96% of Ohioans are living in a red or an orange county. That's 26% in our 18 red counties and 70% in our orange counties. Only 4% of Ohioans are in the 12 yellow counties. The portion of Ohioans living in counties with elevated risk levels has steadily increased since August, when we saw a lull in cases, as you can see from what's happened with this chart. To live with the virus, look, we need to adjust our routines. We can live with this virus, but we've just got to be very careful. That may mean reconsidering attending a crowded event, reconsidering going to a party. And if you happen to get sick, please help the local health department do the tracing that is absolutely crucial and necessary. Basic prevention measures hold true today as they did at the beginning of the pandemic. The basic principles are the same that we've talked about. Keep a distance, wear the mask, wash your hands, avoid big gatherings. It's the same things. We're going to look now specifically at our new red counties, and we'll start in order of incidence. And the first is Central Ohio and Fayette County. Fayette County now is almost at 3 times In the last 2 weeks, they're almost at 3 times the high incident level of the CDC. They're at 291 cases per 100,000. They're red for the first time this week. They've just jumped up. Local health department officials told us yesterday that they have outbreaks in a small school, cases associated with a funeral, and a large family outbreak. As of yesterday, there were 8 residents hospitalized and 2, sadly, in intensive care. Right here in Marion County. Marion County is red for the second time this week. Local health department officials said they're adding 10 to 15 cases per day, 10 to 15 new cases per day, and that several are connected to multiple outbreaks, including churches, daycares, and a dental office. They're also seeing multiple cases in families and a few cases in schools. Number 3, down into Lawrence County, southern tip of Ohio. Lawrence County returns to red this week for the first time since the week of July 30th. County health officials said they have had outbreaks associated with a funeral, after school activities, and with church functions. The community has spread throughout. The local health commissioner said, and I quote, "The virus is running through families like I've never seen before." Let's turn back to Central Ohio, Madison County. Again, Madison County with a very high rate. They're red for the first time this week. Local health department officials said they are seeing high occurrence of spread in families. They attribute that in part to people starting to spend more time indoors. Ross County. Ross County is red for the first time this week. County health department officials said they're seeing a few cases associated with the prison and others associated with social gatherings such as backyard barbecues and overnight sleepovers. Cases have increased from 7 to 10 a day 3 weeks ago is what it was, now to 14 to 15 cases per day. Let's go up north to Portage County. Portage County returns to red this week. Local health department officials report that Kent State is partnering with CVS Health to provide free testing for students, staff, and faculty starting October 12th. So again, that's a great opportunity to get tested. Each week, 450 students will be randomly selected for testing. The City of Kent Health Department officials also report that in recent weeks, they're seeing cases start to creep into an older population, not just the students. And again, this is what we've been concerned with. Not only concerned about the students and faculty, but then the spread out into the community. County Health Department officials also said they're seeing community spread. Over into the Mahoning Valley. Mahoning County is red for the first time this week. Health Department officials said they have had multiple outbreaks, including an out-of-county wedding with 18 associated cases ranging to other states and counties. The wedding now also has secondary spread associated with it. Two separate funerals have cases associated with them. There have been outbreaks tied to a group home and outbreaks tied to a birthday party. In addition to the large parties, there's been spread inside family units and not necessarily the households where people live, but in extended families in other households. Health department officials said that school districts have been doing an excellent job, as I think, pretty much throughout the state, in keeping the spread minimal. However, as we've said many times, our schools are a reflection of our communities. And if there is widespread spread in the community, the schools simply have no way of keeping it out. Also in the Mahoning Valley, staying in the Mahoning Valley, let's go to Trumbull County. Trumbull County increased from yellow to red this week. The county was last red the week of August 20th. Local health department officials report an outbreak of 22 cases with a school sports team. The outbreak involves 11 players, 3 coaches, and expanded to 4 students not on the team and 4 parents. 1 coach had to be hospitalized. School administrators have been very cooperative. The health department is assigning a nurse to work with the schools. but they have at least one case in a third of the school districts, at least one case in a third of the school districts in the county. There are also continued community events happening, which can lead to increased virus transmission. Let's talk for a moment about flu shots. And I think we have some good news coming out of our counties. Mercer County hosted a record-breaking flu vaccination clinic at the fairgrounds this week. Congratulations. Local health department officials report that they had 872 Mercer County residents who got their flu shots at the drive-through clinic. This shatters their old record of 623 doses given in 2019. Athens County, the city of Athens, congratulations. More than 300 people were vaccinated during just a few hours at the Athens City County Health Department's first drive-through clinic. I want to thank these health departments for what they're doing and other health departments as well, and just encourage everyone right now to get your flu shot. There are many opportunities in the community. We've got some drugstores that are doing it and other places, but please, experts tell us to get the flu shot. Just go ahead and get the flu shot. Very important. So before Fran and I came to Marion today, after we left Cedarville, we stopped in Hardin County and in Wyandotte County. We were able to spend some time with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, many of the great folks there, Mary Mertz, who heads up the department. We also were with Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited has been a great partner of the states and put some real money in helping develop our wetlands, which help us as we work to clean up Lake Erie and deal with the algae bloom in Lake Erie. We visited the site of a future H2 Ohio wetland complex near the Andreoff Wildlife Area. Eric is showing some slides now. ODNR and Ducks Unlimited, which has expertise in restoring wetlands, are leading the project, and we're grateful, as I said, for this partnership. Building and restoring wetlands is an important piece of our H2 Ohio water quality initiative because they naturally and cost effectively improve our water by trapping, by filtering, and removing excess pollution and nutrients, such as phosphorus, that contribute to harmful algae blooms. On one of our shows in the future, I'll put up a map that I saw today that shows where we have started or are planning to start these new wetlands, and we will be able to continue that. This particular wetland complex with several new and restored wetlands will be developed at the headwaters of the Blanchard River, which flows into Lake Erie. These wetlands will help improve water quality in the river, which will then contribute to a reduction in harmful algae blooms on Lake Erie. Very, very exciting to see this. Very exciting to see this cooperative effort. We're working with farmers. We're doing a lot of different things in that Maumee River basin. As we see some of the problems, weather problems around the country, once again, Ohio's Task Force 1 has been tasked to respond. They're headquartered near Dayton. We received word yesterday evening that FEMA activated the team and deployed them to Hammond, Louisiana, where they'll work to assist those impacted by Hurricane Delta, which is currently in the Gulf of Mexico and headed toward the Gulf Coast. We congratulate the team. We're proud of you. We wish you all the best on your latest endeavor to help folks. I want to announce today that at the conclusion of this press conference, we will have up on our webpage the new nursing facility order, the visitation order. This has been signed now by Acting Director, Interim Director Lance Himes. The visitation order will be up on the webpage, and you'll be able to take a look at that. That will start October 12th. I know many families are anxious about that. I know many folks who run nursing facilities are anxious about that too, and you'll be able to get the details at the close of this press conference when that goes up. my page turned here. Let me acknowledge Kim Hall, Director of the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, along with Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. They've been named the Center for Community Solutions Public Service Award winner for 2020. So to both of them, congratulations. This year, the Center for Community Solutions is honoring them for their extraordinary commitment to ensure Ohioans have access to food and nutrition services via the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Their efforts to create the pandemic EBT program, which provided critical assistance to hundreds of thousands of Ohio school-age children. So to both of them, thank you, congratulations. Tomorrow, a first-of-its-kind certification launches in the state of Ohio, one that will help women business owners, and we're happy to announce that. The Ohio Women's Enterprise Certification, WBE, through the Division of Administrative Services, will allow women-owned businesses to seek certification from the Equal Employment Opportunity Office at DAS. Women business owners will now be more visible to those needing products and services in the state of Ohio, and it will open the door for them to receive contracts from government entities and other large businesses. We look forward to seeing the results of this new program and to women business owners growing the Ohio economy. Right now in Ohio, we'll turn to another issue that's near and dear to my wife, Fran, and my heart, and that is Donate Ohio. Right now in Ohio, more than 3,000 people are waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Today, Life Ohio is holding Ohio's first ever online donor registration drive, encouraging citizens to register to donate their organs, eyes, and tissue after death. One organ donor can save up to 8 lives, which is why the Don't Wait, Save 8 campaign encourages Ohioans to register online now rather than waiting until you need to go to the BMV. So just again, when you go to the BMV, you will be asked whether you want to be a organ donor. We ask you, please do this. It can save a life. It can bring sight to someone. It can do many things. If it's a while before you get a new license, you can go online, donatelifeohio.org, donatelifeohio.org, and you can sign up. And we'd appreciate if you would do that. I said it was near and dear to my heart and Fran's. Our daughter Becky, after her death, was an organ donor, and many people were helped as a result of that. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on in Cincinnati, involving the First Lady of Cincinnati, Mrs. Cranley. Ohio National Guard is assisting with free testing in the Cincinnati area on Sunday. The Guard is part of the First Ladies for Health Family Health Day. Testing is available at 9 Cincinnati locations on Sunday, October 11th from 1 to 4. Several locations also offer flu shots for the whole family. So visit Family Day. Let me do it again. Visit familyhealthday.org for details. Familyhealthday.org for details. If you're in Southwest Ohio, a great opportunity. You can see other locations if you live in other parts of the state, and you go up on our website, coronavirus.ohio.gov. I think we're now ready for questions.
Governor, first question today is from Marty Schladen at the Ohio Capitol Journal.
Good afternoon, Governor. It's a little serendipitous that you started with the 1920 election and noted that both the men running were newsmen. I wanted to ask you about the 2020 election and your status in it. Aren't you trying to have it both ways with Donald Trump? On the one hand, you say you're supporting him and you praise him for things you think are praiseworthy, but you don't want to comment on the very, very controversial things that he says and does. So isn't that trying to have it both ways? And would we be doing our jobs as journalists if we didn't ask you about this?
Well, Marty, you have your job, and I respect that job, and I respect your question. Look, everybody I've ever voted for president, there are some things that I might not have agreed with them on. everyone has to make a choice. I've spelled out, I think, very clearly some of the things that I think Donald Trump has done exceedingly well. I've talked about, because I know about this, and I personally have knowledge of this. Last night, the vice presidential debate, Vice President Pence has led this effort. We're on the phone every single week, Democrat and Republican governors, with the vice president. They do everything they can to get us whatever resources that they have. When I've asked them for something, they've done that. So that's my personal experience. Big picture, I'm very happy with who Donald Trump has put on the courts. He made a commitment to the people of Ohio and the country. Many people voted for him the first time because of that commitment. He's kept that commitment. He's put people who believe in the Constitution, who know they're not legislators, very qualified individuals. His last Supreme Court nominee, Judge Barrett, certainly fits that as well. The economy. Look, we've gone down. We all know why we've gone down, because of the virus. But Donald Trump negotiated and was tough in negotiations. And it took a lot of guts to do it, because when you're going in to have a new negotiations, you don't get everything you want. And sometimes there is sacrifice, and sometimes some people are hurt. But I think the president had the attitude that we've got to be tougher in our negotiations. And I think by and large, those negotiations have gone well. I've made it clear that nobody who's in the media team that's calling in from all over the state, mostly around Columbus, but from other parts of the state, should have any doubt what I think about masks, should have any doubt what I think about social distancing, should have any doubt about what I think about this virus. Twice every week, I'm here answering questions. And I've been adamant about this. And I've gotten a lot of criticism about that. Donald Trump has not taken those same positions. Obviously, he and I don't agree on some of those things. So those things, I think, are obvious. But like every American, in the end, I'm voting for one or two people. And I'm very happy to be voting for Donald Trump for the reasons that I said.
Next question is from Max Philby at the Columbus Dispatch.
And
Hey,
Max,
Governor. Governor, just curious, within the next week or so, should we be expecting any changes to the alcohol sales curfew? And secondly, wondering if you saw that the FDA issued a warning letter to Battelle for its mask sanitation units earlier this week, and wanted to see if you'd care to comment on that.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the Battelle news yesterday that you all reported, I got on the phone with the CEO of Battelle, and we had a conversation about it. He's going to keep me informed about what is going on. Their position is that there's not a problem, but that has to play out. And I know that they have supplied an awful lot of masks at a period of time when we didn't have masks, literally didn't have masks to cover. We're in a much better position than we were today, but they filled in a hole at a very, very crucial time. So, this is not, my area of expertise, and we'll let the FDA work this out, and we'll see what happens. In regard to alcohol, I have a call this afternoon with the Ohio Restaurant Association. I'm going to listen to them and what they have to say. If you look at where we're seeing a lot of the spread, the things that I mentioned today, and it's not that we don't have spread, coming out of bars or restaurants, but if you look at the things we talk about the most, they're funerals, they're weddings, they're big gatherings. They're all the things that I mentioned earlier. So there's a lot of things that are causing spread in Ohio today. And so we're trying to weigh, the balance. We have small businessmen and women. We know we're into the football season. We know this extra time that people could spend in a bar is important to businesses, but we also have to balance that out and this really is no different than any other decision that we've made. Every decision that we've made has been a balance, and they're not easy decisions. So I'm going to listen to them this afternoon, and we'll see.
Next question is from Laura Bischoff at the Dayton Daily News.
Hey,
Hello,
Laura.
Governor. So I was curious if the Trump campaign has discussed with you or any of your leaders, or your team rather, any contingency plans to kind of litigate the election results. What happens if we don't have clear results in the 10 days following election night? And, how confident are you that we can count the ballots and determine the winner by mid-December?
Well, I'm pretty confident that we can do this in Ohio. My knowledge of elections, is only what I read beyond Ohio. But we've been able to do this consistently in Ohio. We're seeing a lot of people vote absentee. We're seeing a lot of people, as you all reported, I think I saw it first in the Dayton Daily News, the pictures yesterday, Tuesday morning when people were lined up to vote. And, a lot of people are going to have voted already by election day. And my guess is it will not be as crowded on election day. Ohio allows votes when they get these votes in, they can get them ready. They can't run them, but they can run them after 7:30. And so I think by 8:30, you're going to see a lot of votes come in from Ohio, most of them probably the early absentee ballots. But those absentee ballots, I'm sure, are going to be more than we've ever seen before. So I'm not concerned about it. We have Democrats and Republicans from the precinct level, to the counties that are doing a good job. And we're proud of the job that we do here in the state of Ohio. I've had no discussion with anyone from the Trump campaign about any particulars about legal filings or anything like that.
Next question is from Dan DeRose at WOIO in Cleveland.
And let me just say, if I could just add to that, I've never been involved in any campaign, presidential, where each side didn't have lawyers lined up. So that should not shock any of us if both sides have lawyers ready to go in each state. Every campaign in Ohio I've ever seen, there are lawyers lined up from each side ready to go just in case something happens and somebody needs to go into court. So the fact that lawyers are getting ready to do something should not, I don't think, cause us should not cause us a lot of alarm. Who's next? I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Governor. Dan DeRose with Cleveland
Hey, Dan.
19 News. While this is my first question, I'd like you to know that every day we bring your live news conferences to Northeast Ohio. And so I want to thank you for your continued public access to give everybody the latest information. With that said, I'd like to get your reaction on news that has come out of Michigan today. 6 individuals arrested, indicted by the FBI for what appears to be an attempted kidnapping of Governor Whitmer in that state. It went as far as these individuals preparing IED devices, testing them out. This appears to be a plot that even touches Ohio. There was a meeting, according to the affidavit, a meeting that was held in Dublin, just outside of Columbus. What is your reaction that the quote unquote Michigan militia was so upset at the way Governor Whitmer has handled things in Michigan that this was an attempted kidnapping plot? Get your reaction to that. And have you been informed of any similar type of threats to your own safety?
Well, it's shocking. This is horrible. Thank heavens officials took the appropriate action to stop this from taking place. All I know is what I read an hour ago, following the story, but it is a despicable act. It is horrible. And, everyone has to denounce this. This is, if you want to talk about, our political process, this is outside our political process. We have a great process. We have a great system. We're a nation of laws. And people can disagree with the governor, as many Ohioans do with this governor, and go about it, the proper way. They can demonstrate, and that's fine. They can file actions in court. They can file things in the state legislature. But this act is just, it's frightening. It's frightening. And so it's just horrible.
Next question is from Laura Hancock at cleveland.com.
Good afternoon, Governor. I have a little bit more of a specific question about the previous question. These people who were accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Whitmer did meet in Ohio. And I was just wondering whether you were aware of that. And also, does your security staff ever think that you were in any danger?
Laura, the one thing I learned a number of years ago when I was lieutenant governor with George Voinovich is that you never talk about security. So, I'm not going to talk about security. But I was not aware of anything. Absolutely had no knowledge about that at all. No, absolutely nothing. I mean, when I read the story, as I said, an hour or so ago, and saw Dublin, Ohio. I said, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know where these people are from that were arrested. That was not reported yet. So I know only what's been reported in the news media. I've not been briefed by anybody about it. It's despicable. It's wrong. It's horrible.
Next question is from Kevin Landers at WBNS in Columbus.
Hello, Governor.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, so Franklin County, we've got a problem here with voters who have been mailed the incorrect ballot. And Franklin County is trying to figure out how many were sent the incorrect ballot. And it raises questions by many about the safety of voting by mail. I'd like you to weigh in on what you know about the situation and what the message is you have to voters who are probably going to be skeptical about the ballots that they receive.
Well, I know only what I've read. I've not received any specific briefing from the Secretary of State on it. So I don't have anything to add to that. Look, I would say that I believe that your ballot is secure by mailing it in. Fran and I stopped at our daughter, one of our daughters and son-in-law, and I saw right on the counter there, they had just gotten in their absentee ballots, and they're sending them in. And I know a lot of Ohioans are going to do that. I don't think Ohioans should feel in any way concerned about that. If someone still feels concerned, though, they can go today and go to the Board of Elections and vote. If they want to do it on a Sunday, they can wait until later and vote on a Sunday before the election. Or they can wait till Election Day, and as what Fran and I usually do, at least, and vote on Election Day and have 13 hours to vote. So I think there's many opportunities for people to vote. Our system works. It doesn't mean that there can't be a problem, but our system works, and it works very well. And I think people should have confidence in it.
Next question is from Jim Province at the Toledo Blade.
Hello, Governor. Thanks again.
Hey, Jim.
You discussed the security concerns that might have surrounded you, but I'm curious. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about potential security risks with Dr. Acton before she resigned. How extensive were those concerns? Was there any rumbling of something similar like this surrounding her? And did that play a role in her decision to resign? And I'm curious as to whether or not that played a role in your later choice, opting not to take the job of health director.
Well, I don't want to go too far down the road here because I really do believe that it's important not to have a public discussion about security issues. But I don't want there to be a misunderstanding. There was no case that was anywhere near this that I'm aware of in regard to Dr. Acton or myself. So I'm not aware of anything that was even, even close than that. Look, you get people sometimes who say things that they clearly, go beyond the First Amendment, but nothing like this. Nothing like this. I don't want anybody to think there has been.
Next question is from Jeff Reddick at WSYX in Columbus.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello, Governor. Good afternoon. You may have seen as well, I know you're trying to keep up with a lot of news today as we are, the changing nature of the next presidential debate. Mainly with that, it seemed that the debate came into question and the date came into question because President Trump did not want to, quote, waste his time with a virtual debate. And that's kind of thrown things into doubt about the next debate. You've, of course, embraced this virtual model. I'm curious your thoughts on not embracing the virtual model at the federal level.
Yeah, this is a developing story. I mean, I'm not sure I know everything about it. Look, in my childhood, I think one of the Nixon Kennedy debates was one was on one coast and one was on the other. So I guess I don't see a problem with it. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure I've read everything that's occurred today, but if you're asking me about a remote debate, can you do it? I think certainly you could do it. It may not be ideal, but you certainly can do it. But again, I haven't really followed it that closely today.
Next question is from Jesse Balmert at the Cincinnati Enquirer.
Hello, Governor.
Jesse.
So there were about 1,500 new coronavirus cases reported since yesterday, and you mentioned the higher positivity rate. I guess, why are we seeing this rise? What are the things that you're most concerned about that Ohioans should be aware of?
Jesse, thank you for the question. I am deeply concerned about what I'm seeing. I know that there's some people who, say, oh, there goes DeWine again. He's talking about this. But go back and look at the maps. I would just ask anybody who doesn't think this is very serious to go look at the maps. And what we have seen is a spread that continues. And if you take a look at the map that shows the counties that are high incidence, which means over that mark, and some of them are almost 3 times over that mark. Mercer County has been on this list now, red list, for 10 weeks. So what we're starting to see in some of these counties is long-term set in of a very, very high level. And so if you take the counties that have a high incidence and you then add in the red counties, it's a lot of counties. And that's a big, significant part of the state of Ohio. So, you look at those numbers, it's a gut punch. I'm very, very concerned about this. Why is it happening? We went through it today. People are not being careful. I mean, think about the tragedy. I mean, I can't fathom this, but think about the tragedy of people getting married and then 2 of the grandfathers are dead. I mean, we're not blaming anybody, but this has got to stop. This has just got to stop. I mean, these lives are valuable. These lives matter. We can do better than this. Now, we have done well as Ohioans, and we don't want to be all gloom and doom. We've done well, and we've taken us to this point. But we're now at a point where it's getting colder. People are more inside. We're now starting to see what we feared from some of our colleges and from our schools, and that is a child, a young person getting sick. Okay, it's one thing, a 20-year-old gets sick. Not something to take seriously. But then that 20-year-old goes and infects a 50-year-old or 60-year-old or a 70-year-old, or there's someone in their family. And nobody does this on purpose, but so many of the people who have it don't really have any indication that they've got it. So what you're seeing in Ohio is widespread spread. And we're heading into winter. So yeah, I am very, very concerned. And I would just say this, we have gotten this far. We have done well. We've not gone over the edge. We've not seen that fire flare up. But it's starting to come. That fire is starting to come. And it's not coming, not just, it's now in our rural areas, it's everywhere. So yeah, I'm very, very concerned. It's coming from the things that we talked about, which is basically people, not social distancing, going into large groups and seeing 200, 300 people at a wedding, funeral. And look, people might say, look, Mike, don't we have to go about our lives? And yeah, we do. That's the point. We can go about our lives. We can do almost anything we want. And the biggest threat to not being able to do almost everything we want is if we're careless and we see the spread get so high. And that's what I'm fearful of. I'm fearful of the spread will get high. Look, we've allowed schools, and we've said we believe in local control of our schools. And so the schools have made the decision, the schools and the parents and the school boards, they have made the decision whether that school is all in person, whether they're all hybrid, all remote, or whether they're a combination of the two. What's going to start happening is when you see these outbreak schools are going to, some are having to go remote. They don't want to go remote, but they're having to go remote. And as this continues, schools are going to have to start looking at this and saying, okay, are we able to keep our school open, or are we going to have to do something else? We want our schools open. We want our kids playing sports. We want our kids in drama club. We want them doing plays. We want them playing instrument. We want them doing all these things. The biggest threat to that is what the people in the community are doing or not doing. I don't know how to say it any more blunt.
Next question is from Carl Hunnell at richlandsource.com.
Good afternoon, Governor. We are happy in Richland County today not to have become the state's first purple county. On Tuesday, you said the color-coded system is meant only to inform people and is not linked to what the state may order. But the Ohio Department of Health website says residents in a purple county should, quote, only leave home for supplies and services. So, Governor, is this an order from the state, or is it just a suggestion, leaving it up to individual cities and counties to decide what to do if they reach level 4? Thank you.
It is the best advice that the health experts can give, but it's advice. We're not, not tying anything to the colors, but they're there to inform. Just as the list that we put up of the high incident counties, they are there to inform people, and people make their decision.
Next question is from Spencer Hickey at Hannah News Service.
Thank you. Governor, negotiations at the federal level on the next round of aid packages broke down earlier in this week, and it's not clear whether they'll resume before the election. Can Ohio sustain the economic and jobs recovery without any additional federal aid?
Well, we certainly would like additional help. As we look at the future, you have heard the same things that I've heard in regard to when the vaccine would be here. And, that we will deploy it as quickly as we can in Ohio, but no one thinks that this is going to be over overnight. And so, we will continue to have need for testing, and we will continue to have, our schools will continue to have needs, our colleges will continue to have needs. And so we would very much, like a bill to be passed. I'm an optimist, and, I think in the lame duck, they will pass a bill. We also, frankly, need guidance. Are we going to be able to roll some of this money over and try to plan for the future, which is what we would like to do? Or is it going to be necessary for all of this money to be spent before December 31st, which would not be, frankly, the most prudent thing to do? But we need that language in a bill. My understanding from talking to legislators, from talking to members of Congress, members of the House and the Senate, is they think if a bill does get passed, that will contain that ability to roll that money over. But until it's done, we can't be sure of that. So yeah, we definitely need this legislation, and we hope that House, Senate, and the President will be able to reach an agreement. And obviously, the sooner the better.
Next question is from Joe Ingles at Ohio Public Radio and Television.
Hi,
Good
Joe.
afternoon, Governor. I have a question about poll workers and polling places coming up. We know that from the news out of Michigan today that there are situations up there, and we may have similar or concerning situations with security in Ohio. We also know that we've seen these situations where people throw a fit over wearing a mask and put employees and businesses in bad straits. And now with the way that our polling places, with the way things are going to be conducted there, essentially it relies on the polling places and the people working in there to be the police. They're the ones who have to deal with the mask. They're the ones who have to figure out what constitutes a threat or violence or where police should be called. In light of that, wouldn't it make sense for the state to get in front of it and make sure that every polling place has proper security? Or do you think that the security that there is enough right now?
This is something that we have talked about as far as security quite a bit. We have involved the sheriffs, we've involved the cities, counties, and so there's been a lot of discussion going on, a lot of exercises being done. Under the law, as you know, sheriffs play a particular role in regard to this. So these discussions, are going to continue to go on. And, we've got a ways to go before the actual election day itself. But of course, as you know, voting is occurring now. And I know that, there are many counties where, there's a sheriff's deputy who is there. And I think that's a good idea. Again, it is prevention. And now when you go to election day, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I know many of the sheriffs are supplying security at the request of local boards.
Next question is from Scott Hallis at the Xenia Daily Gazette.
Hi, Governor. How are you today?
Hey, Scott.
The state health department has given the Bengals and the Browns the go ahead to have around 12,000 fans or so at their home games the rest of the year. Hamilton's red, Butler's red, Montgomery County's red. They're all high incidence. All the areas around Cleveland are still orange. I mean, is this a good idea with the cases being on the rise, especially when, alcohol sometimes is involved, people have a few drinks, maybe their judgment gets clouded. Is this a good idea?
Scott, none of these are easy decisions. What we did with the Bengals and the Browns, we started at 6,000 to see how that would work. As you know, those stadiums hold a lot more than that. It worked, seemed to work pretty well. We thought people were safe inside. We looked to see if it had a detrimental impact downtown for people going or coming. I talked to the mayors, talked to the health officials. They did not seem to think that was. We said, okay, well, let's look at this. Decided to go to 12,000 as a reasonable place, reasonable in the sense that they would still be able to have tremendous spread out there, and that people would be able to be, have a mask on and would be safe. So we think they're safe inside. Frankly, my biggest concern all along has been what happens going in and going out. That's where my biggest concern has been. What happens downtown? As far as the fans, as you know, these fans are drawn from, significant areas. But again, keeping the distance inside. So is there a risk? Sure, there's a risk in everything that we do. I mean, but what we've tried to do and what we believe people can do is live. Go ahead and live. And allowing some more people to go root for the Bengals, go root for the Browns is something that people feel very passionately about. We think they can do it safely.
Next question is from Sean Lanier at WCMH in Columbus.
Hey, Governor, just a quick question. With the numbers of COVID obviously still going up and it's widespread around the state, you talked about meeting with the Restaurant Association and talking with them about potentially just discussing the last call order. Is there any concern that even with what they have to say, seeing what's happening around Ohio, that there's just no way that you'll lift that order? And if there is a plan, is there any date or any data that you're looking at to indicate when that should happen?
No date, no plan. But again, all of this is balancing. And as I'm looking at this, we're not going to shut down this economy again. We're not going to shut everything down. So the question is, how do we live with it in as safest way as we can? And the things that I talked about today, I'm going to say them again, people getting together and not being cautious, big groups in weddings, big groups in funerals, people, doing other activities where they're not social distancing, where they're not wearing a mask. That's what's causing the great bulk of this. I mean, so that's where the major part of the problem is. Could it occur at a football game? Could it occur at a high school football game? Could it occur at a bar? Could it occur? Yeah. I mean, it could occur at a lot of different places. But what we have to do is try to, deal with those things that are the most likely to cause it. And here again, it's my plea to the people of the state of Ohio. You can control this. We've done a great job. We're Ohioans. We're tough. We're strong. We can get through this. But we have to social distance and we have to wear masks. And we have to not go to events with a lot of people. If we do those things, our schools can stay open. If we do those things, our kids can play sports. If we do those things, our kids can go to college. If we do those things, people can go watch a football game at a bar. I mean, these are all things that we can do. And so I again look at the mask. I again look at this mask as our kind of our pathway to freedom. This enables me to go places. This enables me to see things. This enables me to see a loved one, a grandchild. We want to live, but we're not going the right direction. And if more of us aren't wearing masks and if more of us are not being careful, we're not going to be able to do those things because the spread is just going to be so high. And look, there's nobody watching this today who wants a family member to get sick, let alone die as a result of this. So let's just, if we're all careful, we can live our lives and we can live fine. And this thing will be over at some point. We'll get through this, but we want everybody at the other end of it. We want them still alive. We want them to make it. And we don't want them to have gotten sick and have some long lasting health problem. Look, I talked to somebody I know the other day. I had not seen this person for some time because she had been sick. And I said, how you doing? I said, are you back to normal? 100%. I thought she was. She said, yeah, except I got some long-term damage. So, you know, that's not everybody, but again, it's something that we all have to think about. So let's be careful.
Governor, next question is the last question for today, and it belongs to Jack Windsor at WMFD in Mansfield.
Jack, you get to end it today.
Lucky you, huh, Governor?
I'm lucky, Jack. It's my lucky day. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer on Tuesday about the high school student forced to miss her golf tournament. You said that ODH was simply following CDC guidelines. However, she would have been outdoors, socially distanced on day 10 of a 14-day quarantine, completely healthy, and the local health department said she should play. So there's no legal, scientific, or moral justification for keeping her from playing. On Tuesday, you also announced we're going to experiment with antigen tests in schools. Tests the manufacturer says should be used on only symptomatic people. So we're going to experiment on our kids with tests that failed the White House. You said the ODH was hesitant to change policy without data. If kids aren't spreaders or at risk for severe illness, which is what the CDC said, what other data are we looking for to stop the unnecessary, unethical masking, testing, and quarantining of our kids? And do we owe this young lady an apology?
Well, first of all, Jack, kids are spreaders. I don't think there's any much doubt about that as far as what the evidence is coming out. So that's the problem. That's part of the problem. Look, this was a horrible thing for her not to be able to play. And it's a horrible thing for other kids not to be able to do other things. And there are other stories that I'm sure that are out there, and there are other parents I'm sure who are watching this. We are simply trying to follow the best medical advice we could get. And so last week, I put everybody together and I pulled in people. I pulled in people from the Cleveland Clinic, from the Ohio State University, best people that we could find, and University of Cincinnati, and asked them, should we change these? And they said, we are reluctant to do it. We do not believe we can do this unless we have some data. And so we are trying to manage a pandemic once in 100 years. And these are tough situations. But remember, our goal throughout this has been to get as many kids in school as we could. And we've always felt that the way you keep kids in school, most of the kids, is you follow these guidelines. We're going to look at this. And as far as, look, no kid is going to, the antigen tests, they're not dangerous tests. They can be used in this manner. And again, we're going to let the experts, Ohio State, the health experts design, what kind of model that we're going to use. I will tell you, Jack, we've already had a number of schools that have called us and said, we want to be in this. We want to be in this program. So we'll see, and we'll report back on that. As we close today, I'd like to play a selection from the free digital concert that the Cincinnati Pops performed from Music Hall just this last Saturday. The concert was devoted to jazz, which is, of course, the great American art form, and was a soundtrack to the 1920s. So very appropriate that we're doing it today. The piece we'll hear is by African-American composer James Reese Europe, and it's called Castle House Rag. I will let Cincinnati Pops music director John Morris Russell cue this up for us, and we'll see you all next Tuesday.
keep washing your hands and wearing those masks. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Well, that was great from the Harding home here in Marion. Hope you all have a good day, and we will see you next Tuesday.